So we're just going to start with a really simple, probably the most common automation that people use. Doesn't matter, again, if you're in solar, construction, and property management. One of the big benefits of SiteCapture, right, is that you have the report files, and then you also have the image files. And a lot of times, you want to get those out of SiteCapture automatically. Ideally, you want to store them. You may want to send them to customers, send them to internal stakeholders, whatever that may be. So the most simple of all is essentially you start with what's called a trigger in Zapier. And so the trigger is just like, that when this happens, right? So the trigger starts off all workflows. Every workflow needs a trigger. So when this happens, then what? And so that's what leads into what's referred to in Zapier as an action. So a trigger starts the workflow, and then the workflow consists of actions. So the most common one, again, is uploading a file or images to, it could be Google Drive, it could be Dropbox, it could be Box. Again, all these platforms have integrations, so you don't need to confine yourself to just thinking Google Drive. But for instance, a project status is updated in SiteCapture, right? So, okay, a project is marked as complete inside of SiteCapture or whatever you've kind of denoted as complete. I want to go ahead and go to Google Drive, and I want to upload that file. So, without getting into all the weeds here, you'll see kind of the way it's set up is you configure your trigger, right? You have your project status updated. On this step here, you're going to put the status as complete. I'm not going to get into every single field here. A lot of them are self-explanatory. And then also we're here to support you if you do have questions. There's also a good bit of documentation. But the main thing, all right, when a project is complete, trigger this workflow. The next thing that'll happen is, okay, now what? Now we want to go and upload a file to Google Drive. So you'll select the event that you want, which is to upload a file. And then on that action, you're going to select the drive, you'll select the folder, and then you'll just say, hey, okay, I want to upload the report file, right? So you'll be able to click here and just choose the report file. You see, here's the images file, right? That's one. But then you also have the report file. So there's obviously a number of fields here. So it does make it easier. You can just kind of start typing in here. Oh, there's the report file. That's great. Again, this stuff's straightforward. Don't need to get into too many details, but just to show you a little bit of the user interface here. And then you can also name the file. And you can do this using what are called variables. So essentially, whatever your SiteCapture project is named, you can name your Google Drive file that as well, automatically without having to do really much at all. So that's a really simple use case. A lot of times you may need to be a little bit more sophisticated because it's like, you see here, I didn't select a specific folder, right? And there's, you're like, oh, I need it to go into this folder, right? We already have a customer folder, which is very common.
A couple things. So I think what you're showing on this first one, a really simple case. So you just go into Zapier and you're saying, hey, I want to connect two apps together. And you pick SiteCapture as one app and you click Google Drive as the other. Is that kind of how you get started?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So when you come in, it's going to essentially be a blank canvas where you see over here where it says change. In the beginning, it's going to just basically be gray and you're just going to select an app. And there's thousands of apps on Zapier. So more likely than not, your software is supported. And we'll talk a little bit later about what to do if you don't find your app on there. But generally, it's on here. So you'll select that. Most of the time, for a lot of these examples, SiteCapture is going to be the app you're going to trigger off of. And then on the next one, you can change it. I'll show you here what that looks like. I could select Dropbox, or maybe I use, Box, right? Okay, there's one for Box. So you just easily type in what you're looking for and it'll come up.
Cool. So you did in basically 5 minutes, you've set up something that every time a SiteCapture project is complete, the report file is going to automatically end up in a special folder in Google Drive. It's automatically. That's what it is. Just with
automatically.
5 minutes of configuring these steps. That's what we'll end up with. Cool. Okay, great.
Awesome.
All right, let's get more sophisticated.
A little bit more sophisticated here. Again, we're going to start with the same project status updated. It's going to be marked off as complete. That's generally the workflow. But again, you can choose other statuses if you want. What's going to happen here is instead of going and just directly uploading a file, what we're going to do is we're going to actually create a folder inside of Google Drive first. So when you create that folder, you essentially are creating, like, whether it's your customer folder or the project name, whatever that may be, you're going to select or create a folder to then upload those files to. So then as you go through the rest of the steps, you'll be able to upload files to the folder that you just connected. So basically similar to the last one. The only difference here is we're actually creating the folder that we want the files to go into versus just uploading the file to a pre-existing folder. And you'll see here, I do have 2 upload file steps. So let's say that you wanted to upload the report file as well as the images file. You don't need 2 separate zaps. You can just have it all in one. So this step's going to upload the report. This one's going to upload the images. Easy as that. So oftentimes you'll also be like, okay, well, I already have an existing folder, right? I don't need to create a new one. I know where it needs to go. And it's a specific place. So what you'll do then, and let me zoom in again here, is, again, same trigger, project status updated. Now we're going to find a customer folder. So when you're actually using this step here, you'll be able to use data from SiteCapture to find that customer folder. So you'll be looking at, maybe it's based off of the project name, or it's the customer name, or whatever it may be, but you'll be able to find that folder, and then you'll be able to upload from there. So I have an additional step right here that's called find photos in folder. So really what I wanted to show you, this isn't, you don't necessarily always need to find photos, right? Or find whatever, but I want to show you that you can have multiple search steps that are kind of nested. So I want to find the customer folder, right? And then just imagine here, it's like, I want to find something within that folder, right? So, maybe you find that the photos already exist, right? And then you can do something with that file in future steps, or what you can do from there is, you're just going to go ahead and upload the photos. So I actually meant to, all transparency, separate this out into 2 different workflows, but to kind of show you here what you're going to do. You can find a folder, you can find something within that folder, but then you can also upload something within there. So just another example of where maybe you already have the pre-existing folder, so you want to go ahead and find that first. Probably the biggest thing I hear often is like, oh, well, there's some nuance. Every business has a nuance to it, how, especially when it comes to solar companies or, even construction and property management, is like, well, we do it this way. I've worked at other companies similarly, but we do things a little bit differently. And that can sometimes create a mental block to how you're going to set up automations because of doing things differently. The nice thing and what I'm trying to communicate here is that it doesn't matter the nuances or the differences in your business, you can use automations that are going to match your existing workflows. I just wanted to show you, because the other one was Google Drive, you can do the same thing with Dropbox. Very common. I'm creating the folder, and then I'm uploading the photos, I'm uploading the reports. This is just the most standard. But getting into something a little bit, more unique, like, okay, well, great. What are other things I could potentially do? So let's say that you complete an install or you complete a project, whatever it is, you may want to send a notification to that customer, or potentially to an operations manager, or really anyone, that, hey, this project has been completed, right? So a really simple, easy step here, you're going to trigger off of a project status updated, and then you're going to send an email in Gmail. And again, you can use other mailing platforms besides Gmail. It doesn't just have to be Gmail. But you can send that email out, and that way, again, you're going to increase, maybe your customer experience by having more real-time notifications of, keeping them up to date on the project. Because, imagine it doesn't have to just be off of install complete, or the complete status can be, hey, this is in progress. And maybe you have a variety of steps. You want to keep both the customer and internal, operations people or whomever up to date with where the project is, right? Maybe there's certain actions they need to take, internally when a project reaches a certain stage. And let's say you rely heavily on email. Automating that email delivers a lot of peace of mind. So you're not having to stay, up to date inside of SiteCapture, looking for the project. Where is it? And it also just creates way more efficiency. So yeah, that's a really common workflow.
I think a lot of our customers integrate SiteCapture into their CRM, where they want data to flow from customer information that's already in there, flow into SiteCapture, so that like when they create a project, the customer name and a lot of information about the customer flows in. And then when they, like when the project's complete or when the inspection's complete, that data flows back into the CRM. So people who work in the CRM can see maybe a PDF report or see some of the data fields flow back. Even if you don't have an example to show about
absolutely.
that, you have maybe just, can you talk through a little bit about some cases where you've set that up and different CRMs that maybe you've done this with?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll actually jump here to this this integration with Monday. You may use Monday.com. You may use ClickUp. You may use Zoho, HubSpot. Again, whatever the CRM or project management tool you use, it doesn't matter. This is all pretty much the same, right? So let's say that you have a new item, right? Whatever that may be, something is created inside your CRM. So maybe you had a deal that was closed, right? Or you have something that came in, a maintenance request, or it doesn't really matter kind of what it is. That's going to be your trigger instead of SiteCapture, right? So now you want to integrate your external systems with SiteCapture. So this external thing happened where now I need to create a project in SiteCapture because we got to send someone out in the field to complete a project. So when that happens, then what you're going to do is you're going to create a project inside of SiteCapture. Again, here, all automated. And then you're going to update that project in SiteCapture. And so the nice thing about updating that project, right, is we're going to map in, different information, like maybe the location, the name of the person, whatever some of that relevant information is. And you're not limited on the amount of information you can map in, by the way. So if you have a ton of information in your CRM that you need to push into SiteCapture, you can push as much or as little of that as you want. But anyway, so this happens in your CRM, project management tool. You create the project in SiteCapture. You pass in all the information that the field user or whomever is going to need. And then afterwards, what you do is you can actually go back to your CRM or your project management tool, and you can take data from SiteCapture. Like, okay, here is the link to that SiteCapture project. So now that's stored inside of your CRM. So anyone that works out of there will know, okay, that's there. Or maybe it's like SiteCapture projects created. So that actually needs to advance a project in your pipeline, or it needs to change a deal stage or a project stage. You can then say, okay, SiteCapture has been completed. Go back to our CRM and mark it as, site survey scheduled or whatever may actually be the case. So, the thing with Zapier to keep in mind is that it's kind of one directional as far as like you have a trigger that starts and you have a bunch of actions, but you're not limited on the number of actions that can take place. And you can always pull data from the previous steps into the following ones. So that's why we have Monday down here. We're going to update the same project that happened in the trigger, but now we're going to be able to pass in data from all the stuff that happened in between. Just so you all know, you can have Zaps that get very sophisticated. You're not really limited on the number of steps. And I'll also kind of hop over here. I wanted to show you all real quick what's called a path. And so with a path, not to get too complicated, but you can have essentially multiple workflows within a single workflow, and you can use filters or rules to determine the action that takes place. So if like maybe if the project is complete, do this. If the project's in progress, do this. So you can really start to get more sophisticated with how you build your workflows. And honestly, like there's really not much you can't do, because as we're going to talk about with the API, maybe API, your brain kind of turns off. Don't let it turn off. What I'll tell you is that Zapier is basically an interface for the API, but there's also ways that you can use Zapier to directly interface with the API, which gives you just absolutely any possibility you want. But that's a little bit more advanced, and you don't need to worry about that for right now. But just open up your mind to the fact that using a tool like Zapier, it's a really low cost way. They have plans, even like free plans, where you can set some of this up to get started, start building automations, and kind of see how you can make a difference in the day-to-day of your business.